Hello, my dear students and the rest of the learners. Welcome to part 1 of a 22-part series of tutorials in Managed Database System using Microsoft Access and SQL. In this series of tutorials, we are going to be learning on how to create a Microsoft Access database by the title Emily Swap School, and it is expected that by the end of the series, that is by the end of part 22 of 22, you as a beginner or a learner, you will not only be able to manage your information using Microsoft Access, but you'll also be able to generate and print reports that can be used by an organization or by the management in decision making. Therefore, in this presentation, we shall commence by looking at definition of a database, which is part of the topic by the title Identify Database Concepts. My name is Mehmet M, or you can simply call me Emily Swap. Let's begin by asking ourselves a question about what is a database. When we speak about database management is all about managing a database. So what is a database? A database is a structured collection of related data stored electronically and managed using a database management system software, or what we call DBMS, so that it can be easily accessed, managed, and utilized in making decisions. In other words, if you want to be able to easily access information that is integrated and stored together, you need to create a database through which you can be able to ask questions, enter your data, generate reports, and also perform certain computations based on the information or the data that has been stored in your database. And therefore, that's why we are saying that a database is a structured collection of related data. Related in this case refers to a specific subject. For example, if you have students in a school and you want to create a database that is supposed to contain integrated information about the students, then when you have kept that information together in a single entity and you have given it a single name, of course using Microsoft Access, for example, then that forms what we are calling a database. And from it, you can be able to generate any information. And therefore, if you have stored information, for example, concerning students, this information may entail, for example, student details, examinations that the students have taken, the subjects learned, the trainers who are training them, the subjects, the fees paid, the examinations done, and other types of information, but which relates to the students. And therefore, my dear students and the rest of the learners, some examples of database management system software that you can be able to use to create a database and manage your database include Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access has various versions. In the context of our presentations, we are going to be making use of Microsoft Access 2016, which is like a baseline or a foundation for other current versions. And therefore, whereas we are going to be using Microsoft Access 2016, the knowledge learned and the skills acquired can be used in creating databases using other versions of Access. The only difference will be in only a few aspects, like the menu and where you access some items. But the process and the way we are going to be creating a database and manage database is similar. We can also make use of Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, Informix, MySQL, and other database management systems software. Now, Microsoft Access allows you to manage your information in one database file. Now, when we speak about data, we are simply talking about the facts, text, graphics, images, sound, video segments that relate to a certain entity like a student. And therefore, those facts, text, graphics, images, sound, and the video segments, when stored together in a file, that is what we are calling data. So data are meaningful facts. But there's a question, is data really meaningful or a meaningful facts? Ordinarily, data is not meaningful. It's not meaningful because it has not been processed. And therefore, you can replace this word meaningful with unmeaningful. Because until data has been organized like a database and the information integrated together, you cannot say that it is meaningful because a single data, an atom, may not have a meaning. And therefore, you can say that data is a non-meaningful set of facts, text, graphics, images, sound, video segments. Non-meaningful. But once you process this information or this data, once you process these facts, then they become meaningful. And therefore, the best way to define data is to say that data are raw facts. Data are raw facts. Text, graphics, images, sound, and the video segments that are not meaningful until processed. When information are the processed facts that are meaningful to the user and are therefore useful in decision making. So I have used this word here for the sake of helping you be able to see the similarity between data and information. So when you are storing facts, raw facts, concerning a certain subject in a database, when you are keying in, that data is not meaningful. So it's just raw facts. So data are raw facts. Data are raw facts that are not meaningful to the user until processed. While information are the processed facts that are meaningful and can be used for decision making. So when we are creating a database and we have entered our data into it, or raw facts into it, what we expect to generate from that data or from that database, for example, in form of reports, that is now information. Those are the facts that are processed and are meaningful to the user. And therefore, a database allows efficient data entry, retrieval, update, and management. Microsoft Access, therefore, provides a user-friendly platform for creating relational databases, especially for small to medium-sized institutions like the one which we are going to be creating by the name MediSwap School, which will contain tables, queries, forms, and reports. And you can also create macros and modules if you want to automate most of the tasks. And therefore, in Access, the database file organizes that information that you have into objects, which are tables, queries, forms, and reports. Tables, as we are going to see later, are the ones that are used to hold the pieces of information or the data. The query now is an aspect of processing where you generate a question from the data which you have in tables, and you can be able to generate certain information that is useful. You can ask your database a question and you get a reply through a query. Forms are the ones which enable you to be able to move between one table to another. So you are able to capture your data through forms, and you can also display results that were generated from queries through the forms, or the reports are used is an object which is used, of course, to generate certain information or information from your database based on the question that you are answering. And therefore, we are going to be looking at what tables are, how we create the tables, what are queries and how we generate queries, what are forms, how we create them and how we use them, as well as reports. That is how we generate reports from our database. Now, every database is simply a file name. A database is simply a file. So a file that we'll create using Microsoft Access is what we are calling a database, because all the information that is integrated and kept together is saved as a file. And therefore, a database file, a file in Microsoft Access is simply a database file. And when you save that file, it is added.accdb, which stands for an extension to indicate that this is an access database. So ACC stands for access, DB is database. So a database file that is created using Microsoft Access is saved and added.accdb, which is automated. So your work is simply to save your database with the name that you are giving it, for example, Emily Swap School. And once you do that, then the Microsoft Access will automatically add the extension .accdb, which indicates that this is a file created using Microsoft Access and it is a database. So an example of such a database file is emilyswapschool.accdb. So when we create our database, we are going to see that once we have begun the process of creating our database and we save it, it will be given an extension .accdb. So when you are saving your file in Microsoft Access, you don't type the extension. The extension will be added by the application automatically once you click on create or once you click on save. The information in this database is stored in a latent tables so that data can be retrieved from it quickly. Now, examples of such tables that we are going to be having in our database, which we are going to create in the sequence of presentations, will include a table called enrollments, students, courses, programs, payments, and fees. Ordinarily, in the normal working environment, where you are not making use of a computer or a database, what we are calling tables is what is simply called the files. So if, for example, you wanted to refer to the information relating to students who have been enrolled in a school, you expect to find the information in various files depending on the work or the function of each of the files. For example, when a student is admitted, he or she will have his own details captured in a file called admission file. And this admission may also be called the student's file. If you want to indicate more details about the enrollments that have taken place for various series, various levels, and various years, you can get it from a file called enrollments. When you want to look at the various courses that the institution is offering and the courses that various students are taking, you can be able to find that information in a file on the courses. If you want to know more about the programs on offer and various options available for students to pursue, you can easily get that from a file called programs. When you want to look at the various amounts of fees that various students are supposed to pay for various courses and the various units of competence or subjects, you can be able to get that information from a payments file through or from which, when a student is admitted, whoever is admitting this student or enrolling this student can use that file or can refer to that file to know how much the student will be charged. You can also have a physical file called the fees that indicates the amount of money that a student has paid and any accruing balances that the student has not paid. So those are just the examples of physical files that will be defined in relation to students. However, in the computerized environment, when you digitalize this information using Microsoft Access and you create a database, for example, called Emily Swap School, then whatever information that has been kept in the files is what we enter or key in the objects we call tables. And therefore, even in a real environment, you have 6 physical files. When you capture that information as it is into the computer, then each of that file will have a name similar to it by the name of a table. So if you are having a file called enrollments and you want to transfer that data that is in that physical file to the database, then you create a table called enrollments and capture almost the same information as it is in the file. The same applies to students file, courses, programs, payments, and fees. And therefore, our database that we're going to be creating this series will have 6 tables, what we ordinarily call 6 files in an analog environment. So a database such as a MediSwap school will be composed of the following elements, organized from the highest to the lowest. So we are going to have tables, and when we speak about the table, we are simply talking about the collection of records that describe similar data. Usually, a database contains several tables whose information is related, and an example of such in a swap school is a table like students. Now, if you open any of these tables, you are going to find certain information in that table. And therefore, a table contains certain records. And when you have several tables organized together in reference to a certain subject, what you form is a database. And therefore, when you speak about a database, you can simply say that a database is a collection of related tables about a certain subject. A database is a collection of related tables about a particular subject. For example, students. That is why the name of our database will be a MediSwap School database. Now, this MediSwap School database, if the information you need is only for students, then you can easily then call it a MediSwap Students database. So the name of the database depends with the information that is in the tables. Each table is composed of certain information which is organized in the form of records, as we are going to see. So what is a record? A record is a collection of related fields within a table. So this simply means that a table is a collection of related records. And therefore, each table is composed of several records. For example, a single record in the students table may be composed of the following fields: student ID, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, phone, email, address, program ID, enrollment date. So what we are calling first name, student ID, last name, etc., these are the things now that we are calling fields. And when you key in data for each of them, that data will be for a single record. For example, if you have 10 students, each of the students will have this of a student ID recorded, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, phone, email, address, program ID, enrollment date. So a record is composed of those or all those fields. So in this case, a single student record or a single record of a student in the students table will be composed of how many fields? This record will be composed of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fields. So if you have 10 students, it simply means that those will be 10 records. And each, I repeat, if you have 10 students, or let me say 7 students, whose details have been stored in the students table, then the 7 will be 7 records. And each of those records will be composed of the 10 fields. Therefore, the other question you need to ask yourself now is, so if that is the case, then how do we store data? in each of those fields. So when you are keying in data in a table, that is for each record, we key per field. So like let us have data for one student. So if you look at this, table, I want to go back so that you can see it. If you look at this record, this one record in our table called the students. Now, when you are keying in data, data is keyed per field. So, for example, the student called Alice Mogo, her admission or a student ID, we sometimes you can call as admission number, is 1, meaning this is the first student in the database. Then first name, Alice, last name Mogo, date of birth is 12th of March, 2005. Gender is female, phone is 07123 45678. The email is alice@mogo@example.com. The address is Nairobi. Program ID is 1. Enrollment date is 1st of September 2022. So what happens is this, and you are going to see it. Once you are creating a table, first you select the fields, or you key in the names of the fields that your table will have. Then you save that table and you give it a name, like students table. So the students table will be composed of all those fields, 10 fields in this case. Now, once you have created the table, once you have created the fields, which form a record, and then you have saved it, you give that table a name. After you have done that, you proceed now and key in the data under each of the fields, and you don't leave any of those fields empty. So once you are through with keying in details about a single student, for example, under each of these fields, you save it, and then you proceed and you enter another series or another set of data under the same. Like, for example, 2, name and Julius, date of birth 15th January 2024, gender male, phone 0717111051, email julius@gmail.com, address, it can even be PO Box 2022 Isiolo, program ID can be 10, enrollment date can be 15th of January 2025. So that's another record, and you do the same for all of them. And once you have done that and you have saved it, that is what will form what we are calling a table. Now, when we speak about a record, we have said that a record is composed of fields. So what is a field? A field is a portion of a record identified by a certain name and stores a single collection of characters or holds one piece of data within that record. For example, we have looked at the students table and we have seen these fields. So as you can see, student ID is a single field and it contains a set of data or a single data. First name is a field. It only owns first names of the students, last name the same. And therefore, that's why we are saying that a field is a portion of a record. You can see this is a record, and it's a record of a single student, but it is composed of 10 portions, which we are calling fields. And therefore, some examples of fields that we are going to have in our database that we are going to create by the name Emily Swap School, they will be as follows. In the students table, we are going to key in, or we shall have the following fields: student ID, first name, last name, date of birth, gender, phone, email, contact address, program ID, and enrollment date. In the table called programs, we shall have the following fields: program ID, program name, duration, and department. Our courses table will have course ID, program ID, course name, and credit hours. The table called enrollments will have the following fields or details: enrollment ID, student ID, course ID, academic year, and the term The fees table will be composed of fees ID, program ID, amount, academic year. Our last table, which will be payments table, it will have the following fields: payment ID, student ID, fee ID, payment date, amount paid, and payment mode. Now, you can have as many tables as possible within your database, but it depends with the work that each of those tables is meant to perform. And each of those tables will have data organized in form of fields, whereby under each field, you are going to enter certain data. So once you have created a table, you have created the fields. The next thing that you do is to capture data into each of those fields, as you are going to see. For one to be able to create and manage a database, he or she needs to possess the following components of the database management system environment. In other words, for you to be able to create a database, you need to have the following. Number one, you need to have the right hardware. Now, what is hardware? Hardware are the physical and tangible electronic and mechanical components of a computer system. And in this case, we are going to require a computer system that the database management system and the application programs run on. So you need a computer. Now, this can range from a single personal computer to a server to a group of computers forming what we call a network. Secondly, you require software. Now, software are simply a set of programs that you need to make use of. Like in our case, the software we are going to require is Microsoft Access, which can be of any version. Now, the database management system software and the application programs, together with the operating system, including network software, if the database management system is being used over a network, is what forms what we are calling software. So in our case, we are going to make use of Microsoft Access 2016 as our application program. Then we need an operating system in our computer. So the operating system in our case that I'll be using for demonstration will be Windows 11. And that's what we are going to require. We don't need the network. But if in a networked environment, you can still make use of the network. And therefore, the third component you need is the data. You cannot have a database without data. So what is data? Data, as we have seen, simply are the raw facts or unprocessed data or unprocessed facts. You don't say unprocessed data because you are defining data. So data are the raw facts that are not meaningful, and those are the facts that you key into a database so that you can process them and be meaningful. The data acts as a bridge between the hardware and software components and the human components. In fact, data is what makes a database, because without data in a database, then that cannot be a database. This data can be both the operational data, that is the data which you key in that you're going to use, and hidden details, which we call metadata, that the operating system or Microsoft Access require for its operation. That is details about data, and we call that data about data. That is what we call metadata. The fourth component that we require is procedures. Now, these are the instructions and the rules that govern the design and use of the database. Based on the program that we're using, there are rules that govern. If you're using SQL, there are rules that govern how you write the instructions using SQL. If you're using Microsoft Access, like what we're going to be doing, there are also rules that guide and govern how to make use of Microsoft Access to create a database and also manipulate data within the database. And therefore, procedures are key. They make use of instructions on how to log, for example, on the database, make backup copies of the database, and even how to handle hardware or software failures in case they occur. Lastly, the other component is people. You need people. You need a person who includes database designer, database administrator, application programmers, and also you as the end user who is making use of this application, this database. So you are part of the end users. We call them, in another word, liveware, hardware, or peopleware. And therefore, those are the 5 components. So what are the functions then of a database management system? What role do they play? What does database management software perform? What role? Number one, it enables you to create a database. And number two, it also helps you to be able to make questions or ask your database to generate certain information using what we call queries. Database creation here, we mostly make use of tables. And of course, you use forms for the entry. Retrieval, we make use of an object that we call the query. And of course, even reporting is part of the retrieval. So queries and reports are key. Number three, with the use of a database management software, you can be able to make changes to the data that's already in your database. So that's what we call updating of the data. So you are able to update your data in the database. You can also be able to manipulate your data. Like, for example, performing certain computations, doing some formatting, etc. So database management software gives you or offers the user or a programmer what we call programming user facilities for you to be able to create your database and also manage that data that is in your database. Number 6, we have database revision and restructuring. So the database management software enables you to do revision for your database and also restructure it and be able to manipulate your data as you want. Database management software also enables you to have what we call data integrity. So with the use of database management software, you can be able to ensure that your database has integrity controls. For example, making use of passwords to block or determine who accesses the data in your database, as well as setting other restrictions. With the use of database management software, you can also be able to monitor how your database is working, who is accessing what in your database, and what is happening, the changes that are taking place. You can also, or you are also able to do what we call execution of several actions at the same time by different users. So Microsoft Access or a database management software, DBMS, enables what we call concurrency control, because this is allowing more than one person to simultaneously access your database. Now, having learned that, let me show you a sample database by the name MLSwap Hotel so that you can see how a database looks like. You'll also be able to identify what I'm calling objects, like tables, the queries, the forms, and the reports, so that as you proceed learning in the next subsequent presentations, you can be able to at least have an idea of what a database is. So we are going to open a database that I have already created by the name MLSwap Hotel. So this is the database I want to open. So if you have a database saved in your computer, you can see this is just a file. It looks like any other file. And when you point to it, it is Microsoft Access database. So you right click on it, and you click open. Now, because it has been created using Microsoft Access, you can see your database will open. Now, I want you to note that once you open your database, you are able to see the name of your database somewhere on top there. So that is the name of our database in this case, as you can see. Now, this database has several objects, and the objects usually appear on this section of your screen. As I explain about this, I also want you to learn about the parts of a database access editing environment. So we have several objects here. Let me minimize them so that you can see them in the summary. How do you minimize? You just click on each. So we have how many objects? As you can see on the left-hand side of the screen or on this pane, the pane called All Access Objects, you can see we have tables, we have queries, we have forms, we have reports, and we have macros. So the main objects that we are going to be working with in our database are 4: tables, queries, forms, reports, and macros. Now, those are the names of the objects we have. If you want to open any or enlarge any, you just click it. You can see when you click under tables, we have how many tables? We have customer table. We have the customer bill. We have customer details. We have customer contacts. You can also click, for example, queries. My database contains the following queries. We have amount to pay, amount owed, higher debts. Those are queries. If I click forms, you can see the forms that our database has. We have 4 forms: customer bill, customer contacts, customer registration, hotel main menu. Those are forms. If I click on reports, you can see we have the following reports. We have customer payments report, customer expenses report, and I have levels, customer contacts. And I also have what we call macros. But in the context of our study, in the context and the level of this presentation for beginners, we are not really going to pay attention on macros objects. Now, those are our database objects. That's what we form, or that's what forms a database. Then from there, if you want to see the fields in each of the tables, I want to open one table. So to open a table or any of the objects, you just right click on it, you click on open. Now, what you see is the name of the table. So the name of the table will be indicated up here, as you can see. So that is the name of our table. So I have opened a table called customer. Then for you to be able to identify the fields in it, you look at this line. So these are the fields in our database. These are our fields. So in this case, in our case, we have how many tables? Or how many, not tables, but fields. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 fields. So the table called customer has 5 fields. And then under each of the fields, you fill details about your subject. This table is called customer. So what we have under the fields are records for customer. So what is a record? A record now is, for example, this record here. One full row of data in a table forms what we are calling a record. So as you can see, like this record here for Anne, it has how many? It has the following data. So this is data. And the author ID, this customer is identified by 12. And the national ID, we have 67,123. On the field for first name, it is Anne. So you type Anne. And the second name of this customer is Moasia. Date admitted as well. It is 24th October 2023. So this is what we are calling a record. So this table has how many records? You just count them. This table has the following records: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the table by the name customer has how many fields? It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 fields. And each of the 5 fields forms a record. So this table has how many records? It has 1, as we have seen. It has 10 fields. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see each of the 10 records, is composed of each of the 5 felons. So what the content here, like 23, 67, 82, James, Kamau, Anne, Nick, Otieno, Johnny, Moyebe, Mukami, 10th, 18th October 2023, TC, is data. So under each of the felons, we have data. You can see. And data animated, we have data for animation. And the second name, we have the following data. And the first name, we have the following data. And the national ID, we have that data. And the hotel ID, we have that data. So after you have created your table and you have created your fields, the next thing that you do is, once you have created your fields and you have set the right properties, from there, you key in your data. And you do the same. We are going to learn how to create queries. Let me open. Now, for you to close a table, you right click on it, you click on close. If you open a query, you just right click on it, click open. So this is a query. A query is composed of various fields. These fields might be in the tables or just generated. So if you want to close the query, you just right click and click on close. For the forms, let's open this form so that we see how it looks. This is our form. This form is called the customer bill. As you can see, this form is simply displaying the information from the database. And you can see there's a form has also links that you can click, like this button here, say click me to go back. You can see it takes me to another form called the hotel main form. And you can see this one here, hotel main form. And you can see there's a menu through which, if I click, for example, what do you want to do? I register a new customer. It opened for me the form for registration. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, we are going to be learning how to create forms within this series of 22 on creating and managing database system. Let's also open, let's close this form so that we now open a report. Let me click on customer payments report. So what you do, right click on that report to open. So this is a sample report. Now this report is called customer balances. Customer balances. So we are going to see how we create reports and what reports are in the next sequence of presentations. Now we are going to be working mostly with the tables, queries, forms, and reports, but you can also create macros which are automated, which are for automating tasks. So if I open this macro, you can see if I click on it, what I have is run, design view, export etc. So simply, because macros are for automating tasks, if you click on run and it opens whatever you wanted it to open. So with the time, in the sequence of presentations of this series, we are going to see how we do that or how we create them. So this is the enlarged or the expanded form of the objects. If you want to minimize, you just click on the name. Tables, queries, forms, reports, macros. So that's what our database is all about. We are going to learn the rest later in the next sequence of presentations. Now, once we are done with the database, you click on the close button, which is on your right hand side, almost part here. So you click on close. So let's close our database. So just click on close database. And we are back to our screen. And I can also click on that. So my dear students and the rest of the learners, that is all with introduction to databases. And therefore, you can continue to part 2 of 22, in which you are going to learn on how to identify database models, because each database is based on a certain model based on the language or the application that you have used to create your database. We are going to learn more about that in presentation part number 2, which you can find or you are going to find in the channel by the name MLSwap ICT YouTube channel. And therefore, I want to congratulate you for learning part 1 of 22 on definition of a database in managed database management system using Microsoft Access and SQL. You can access the rest of the parts in the series, as well as other computer or ICT videos by clicking or tapping on the Microsoft ICT YouTube channel below this video. So if you look below this video, you are going to see the subscribe button. So if it reads subscribe, just tap on it. If it reads subscribed, you are going to go, you are a member of the channel. I'd like to thank you for being part of this journey of learning. To subscribe to the channel, therefore, you just need to tap on subscribe button below this video in YouTube. If it's not currently reading as subscribed. For any further correspondence, kindly write to us through the email emilySwap@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening to me. Let's meet in part 2 of the series, and God bless.